Welcome to the Nuclear Snail channel. Today I have this post-apocalyptic backpack for you. Let us take a closer look. Let's go over the features of this chunky boy. And it weighs quite a lot just by itself, I think. Around 5 kilos or so. I didn't weigh it yet, but that's what it feels like with all the stuff attached to it. So the first thing you will notice is this kind of a what I call a pancake filter on the back of it. Just like the one I did in the past on tunnel scavenger gear at some point. This one is also made out of the bottom of a golf bag. 6 bolts all around it attach it to the backpack, and it's so cramped with other features here that you can barely see. Let me change sides here. So it's important that you can't lift it, so it actually looks like integrated into the backpack itself. And you see in the middle here we have some nice grids. And we have multiple detailing levels here. So we have this thing with this thing, and we have 2 sorts of grid in there. The idea behind this was like, it's a higher tech air filtration system, probably a powered one, that does air filtration and then provides fresh air to the user. I will show you later how this is fastened inside of this. So in here, we also have this sort of a electronic port kind of thing. So I figured this, with this red wire, first it's a color accent, and second it leads inside of there, so it's a bit of an additional story. So maybe it was used to tweak the way this air intake system behaves in using some electronic device or anything like that. So that was the idea behind it. You can also see some decals on it, just to add an additional level or layer of detailing, because this thing sits right in the middle of it. Now this flask right here, it used to be not blue. I painted it and then chipped off and scraped and sanded off some paint off. Man, this is really giving my bicep a workout when I'm holding it like this, talking about it for God knows how long now. This thing, as I've said, it's a chunky boy, like 5 kilos or so for sure. So the stencils here surely add a lot of detail. Pretty much this whole flask and this whole side of it really lives and dies by the stencil work on this, so never underestimate small detail like that. And the flask is held in place by this rubberized stretch loop. Yes, the rubber will die at some point, but we're still doing costuming and this was just convenient to do. So is it like 1,000,000% realistic? Probably not, although rubber does hold for a long time, especially if it's protected by fabric. So depending on how far in the future you are and how long ago the apocalypse happened and how this rubberized band was stored, this might actually work. And it's tight enough to hold it by this waist here, because this bottle has a waist right there. There we go. So there is like a groove, a waist groove, as in, like, you know, the waist, not like wasteland. Anyway, it's held like that really tightly. Even if there was water in it, it would still hold. And that's pretty much all there is to it. Except the arrangement. You will see that the arrangement is vertical, same as these two. So there is a vertical block of more solid material, vertical block of more solid material. Then we have a horizontal here fading into kind of a circular thing. This is some climbing rope, by the way, can never go wrong with that. Just add some really cool detail. And then in that square right here, we have a circle inside of a circle in the middle. So circle, circle, square. I did not do that on purpose, it's just something that I notice afterwards. Sometimes I will intuitively do variations like this, which contribute to the whole thing looking not so boring and more interesting. So this is something you can do. Moving on to shape and material contrast, on this side we have those two bags just added to the side. So this is a soft fabric bag with some rulers here on top. Why? I don't know why. Just a color contrast and looks kind of cool. And I needed some sort of detail here in addition to this small stencil here. So detail work like this when you get really up close is what makes it really believable. And this is just a big bag which can be filled with stuff, and to that bag is attached another bag right here. So they also have different colors so that it's again a bit more dynamic, a bit more organic, and looks like it has been added later on. The whole idea behind this is like a backpack found in a bunker and then with stuff added on top of it as the owner was traveling the wastelands. So here we have probably the coolest features of this. On this side of the pack we have this canteen, which is pretty dirty on the inside, so I was thinking like no one's gonna be cooking in that for real. So you know what, it was supposed to be a trader's backpack, so why not give him some free candy? You know, what could he have inside of that? It is open and people can get their hands into it, so realistically you would just want something to be there that you don't mind losing anyway, and then it's free, and if it's free then free candy. That's how I came about that idea. This is just a piece of aluminum here which is attached. So let me show you this. So here is a piece of wire, electric wire, that is attached to the backpack. To that is attached this hook, the original hook from this canteen, and to the belt of that hook that connects the hook and the canteen is attached this free candy thing with a custom stencil that I made. And its entire shape, as well as, you know, the arrows and all that, just suggests that you put your paw in there and grab the free candy. And underneath we have again another custom stencil, a happy snail mint tea. Because I just found this lying around the workshop and I was like, I'm gonna use that. Like, you know, this is a perfect contrast to a military-ish bunker style backpack, to add something like a cookie jar or a coffee can tin, whatever it is. I think there was coffee in there at some point. And it still works. There we go. So there can be stuff put in here, and you see there is an added decal, some story, 7.62, holes in 9mm. So you would want to store your ammunition in the wasteland somewhere where it's isolated from the outside, so it doesn't get stuff in it. Oh god. Alright, moving on. Let's address this here. So this is a port out of which we have this air hose coming out. And this could be, of course, attached to a mask or something like this, and as usual for my works anyway, it's fixated to the straps here. As I already mentioned, the story is that this air filter right here sucks in the air, does its filter job, and proceeds to pump it into this, where it goes to the mask. This of course just hangs in there. I will later open the insides and show you how it's fixated. Yeah, I already mentioned this rope, not much to it. It's just held in place by two clamps right here. So those are loops which can be unhooked here, although not that easily, because I don't think they will actually be unhooking it very often. And on top here you'll see this big red bag with a Bunker Ypsilon logo on it, reinforcing the whole bunker story. Bunker Ypsilon is just something I made up. And this bag is red. It used not to be red, but I was like, do I want another green military colored bag on top of this all. Like, no, kind of boring. So I'm just gonna make it red, like some sort of an emergency bag or whatever. And I think it really does a nice job of being a huge highlight and also contrasting with this blue and this green. So it's like a three-way contrast, complementary contrast, which, by the way, you can find here too. You know that I'm a fan of small red highlights. And you'll see that the sides of the backpack, there is, of the backpack flap, there isn't really much to them except a bit of dirt work and like some really unobtrusive stencils or stamps, actually. And that is because I just wanted to have some rest areas here. You know, this whole thing is so loaded with detail, I can barely even see the original backpack anywhere. So that's the reason why I wanted some rest areas. By the way, the original backpack is a old Swiss Army backpack. It's made out of this rubberized material. I don't know if they still use them or if they still make them or whatever, but I've had one lying around. So I was like, yep, this is perfect. So here on this side you can see a bit more of it. So that's what's the material like. It's like a very, very rubberized textile. As much rubber as it is textile. No water will get through that. Moving on to the front side of this, you'll see that there is some padding added to this. This is from a Russian Telegreka, which is like a padded jacket. And this served as a really nice material. So I just cut appropriate sized pieces because on the original backpack those straps are kind of narrow and not that comfortable. So this actually pads it out a lot, and this is totally a modification which both looks cool and would absolutely make sense if you go around with this for days in the wasteland. You would want to have that. I also added a belt. You see that the backpack had a lumbar support here already. Starts here and goes across the lumbar. So to that I've just bolted this belt right here, not much fancy stuff to it. I left it almost entirely original, and it has this nice loop here, so it goes in there, so that prevents the belt shifting back and forth, and then it can also be locked, and that provides some additional bracing and support. Added this awl to it. This metal awl. It was like a fridge magnet or something, so just popped off the magnet and bolted the awl to that. Nothing on this other side, except like this really subtle detail with a stamp here and some dirt, but otherwise it's barren again to give it a bit of rest areas, because I was noticing I was really loading this up. Now, on this side we have this hose, which is right now not doing what it's supposed. It's supposed to just go like this in there and be held in place by another hose inside of it, and that another hose would be from a working hydration bladder. This here is wide enough, this sleeve if you will, to let the drinking hose through, and then it is just looking cooler because it's multiple layers, a hose getting out of a hose. And also it gives it some additional protection, which is also something you would actually do if you want to, you know, preserve your inner drinking hose. On this side, already talked about this. This is the air thing, and you'll notice up here, to prevent it from slanting to the side and being on the shoulder and all over the place and looking bad and also being in the way, I've added this electric cable right here, which is tied to the backpack itself, like to that strap loop of the backpack, and it just holds it in place. So not every one of those loops has to be like super solid like this. I figured I'll add some more junk detail because I tend not to do very many of those. I usually go with something like this, like with a proper clasp and blah, and all with a nicely terminated hard edge. So I was like, I'm gonna add some junk detail. So here I did a different thing. A bit of asymmetry in the details is always nice and interesting when you explore the item. Check out the profile of this. So this one is really giving it an additional kind of dimensionality, you know? because it's protruding up and it builds this kind of a ridge. So I think that's a very interesting angular aesthetic to complement the other angular components of this. There is a lot of angular stuff here if you look at it closely. Right? And another thing I want you to take a closer look at is this bag right here. It's a leather bag. Right? It's hidden under all of that stuff, kind of. But it's still there. Let me take it off again for you. This would be hanging over your butt, so it's a butt bag. It creates this additional interesting shape to the silhouette, because the silhouette is really important in art in general. And this bag is definitely looking not like something military. It used to be like toiletries bag or something like this. I'm mixing stuff. It's not to say that you need to do it every time, but it's one of the tools I like employing to achieve my goals. Of course, you can do something that looks just military or just scavenge/civilian, but in general, I just love using this tool for conveying that kind of a story. Now, let's go ahead and open this up, and I'll show you the inside. I gave the whole backpack a bit more structure and a bit more shape. Yeah, you can see it here, nice. So this edge right here. So I've added an ABS plastic sheet inside of that. A thin one, a 1mm one. I've just bent it at 2 places. There we go. There it is from the inside. So you see that there is this ABS sheet with a bend. And that is how this hose is fixated inside. You can see there is a small bolt on top of that hose that prevents it from going back through. Not that it's needed, because the whole thing is seated really tightly, so it's not going anywhere anyway. Because, you know, there is also not going to be a lot of tugging on this. Also here, just off to the side, there is this small knife sheath. There is no knife in it, but you could also put other stuff in it, maybe tools, screwdrivers, whatever. That is it for this episode about this big snail shell. Let me know in the comments what you think. Share this video with your friends if they would be interested in this topic. And also, if you are a regular viewer, please consider supporting me on Patreon. My Patreon supporters are the ones who keep this channel going. My Patreon is linked in the video description. Also linked in the video description is the Nuclear Snail community group on Facebook, which you also can join. I will see you in the next episode. Until then, hail the snail and have fun on your post-apocalyptic adventures.